Welcome back to another episode of You Asked For It, the show where you send us questions and Kevin spends time talking about them. So,
How do I send a question, Johnny?
If you ever want to send a question, we will answer anything under the sun, literally anything. Kevin suggested last time.
I will not answer literally anything.
Kevin will talk about anything.
Whatever. Ask
Kevin
anything.
said last time, just type in a word into the comments. We'll spend an entire episode talking about that word. So you can do that. Anyway, to send a question, the easiest way, just comment on this video with a question for next week. You can send an email, contact@accesschurchonline.org, or send us a Facebook message, Access Church. But we did get a question.
Okay.
All right, I'm ready.
Are you good?
I'm
Are
good.
we boring you? Or are you...
Join us now. Join us. Come on.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right, here we go, guys. Here's this week's question. How should a Christian respond to a toxic relationship when loving someone unconditionally does not come naturally?
Getting him saved and sending him to meet Jesus is off the table.
I mean, if that's your answer to the question.
I'm just kidding. Not the getting him saved part.
How should a Christian respond to a toxic relationship when loving them unconditionally doesn't come naturally?
I would ask another question, and that is, what is your definition of loving somebody unconditionally?
Yeah, we've talked about love a lot.
That doesn't mean you don't leave a relationship. You can love. We are called to love everybody, but our actions and how that looks different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was in a very toxic relationship, my love for them would look different, and probably number one, you have to have boundaries. You have to have boundaries for toxic relationships, hurtful relationships, because unconditional love doesn't mean hit me again. Mm-hmm. Unconditional love doesn't mean go ahead and cut me down. I am a child of God, and it's irresponsible for me to allow myself to be treated like that. No matter who you are.
So is there a level of toxicity that warrants different responses?
Absolutely.
I just thought of the System of a Down song, Toxicity.
My brain went right
That's all I thought of. Okay, what was the actual question?
Okay, I said, is there certain levels of toxicity that warrant different responses?
Yes.
Okay. So, per se, like if you're being abused in a relationship and that's toxic, maybe the loving thing to do is remove yourself from that relationship.
Let me ask you this. What would you think about being in a relationship where a non-Christian was drawing a Christian to be non-Christian? Now, that would be a toxic relationship that you would say, God would want you to stop that. Put a boundary up and stop that. And unconditional love would mean a boundary that I'm not going to allow this anymore. That's unconditional love.
Well, and I've even seen that before in my personal life with a husband or the man of a relationship leading a Christian wife away. And the rebuttal was, well, I'm told that I need to follow and honor what my husband tells me and is leading me to do. That's the biblical way of going about it. However, there's a line.
Not into sin.
There's a line there.
He would say, which law is higher?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. God says this, but he also says this. Which one is higher?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you submit to the higher authority.
Yep.
So I guess...
Will you read the question again? Because I initially thought something different than kind of where this is leading.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, I can. I think I know it off the top of my head. But no, it's how should a Christian respond to a toxic relationship when loving someone unconditionally does not come naturally?
See, it's that last part that I heard that, like, I don't know what the toxic relationship is or all these different, there's going to be a billion and one
There's
scenarios
a lot
what
of,
that could look like. But when I first heard it, I heard that when loving unconditionally doesn't come naturally. And like, we joke about this all the time now, but like the answer is just spend time with God.
Yeah.
And that's not a pat answer. That's not a cop out.
No.
If loving unconditionally doesn't come naturally, which it doesn't come naturally for any of us, it's only through spending time with God that's going to change. That will grow.
Yep.
And I think he will lead us on what, directions or specific steps we need to take. I mean, it doesn't mean shut off your brain either, but I don't know. When I heard that, like, well, of course it's not going to come naturally.
Yeah.
That's why we need to be filled with God's presence.
I think in a world in which we live in, we have to change that question for your answer. I mean, I think we need to clarify the question.
Yeah.
Because if the wrong person hears that answer, well, God will give you enough love to get hit again, you know?
No,
not
that.
So, but I would say this. If that question would have been, if the toxic relationship would have been out of there and said, how is it can a Christian love somebody hard to love when God's called us to love unconditionally? You know, it's not humanly possible. Your answer is absolutely right. When we're around people that are hard to love, we need God. And just like forgiveness last week you talked about in the message, it's the same thing. When we experience God's forgiveness, we then can forgive others. The more we experience God's unconditional love, the easier it is for us to act that way. It's reciprocal. As we receive God's unconditional love, we are then more able to love unconditionally. Those people are hard to love. I wanted to make sure we didn't go into that. You know, let's not go into that. Some people are into that toxic, harmful relationships.
Well, I feel like there's kind of two different things happening
in that one question.
In this one question, as well, because I think there's a lot of responses to toxic relationships.
Call the cops.
Yeah, and it may not
holding people accountable for their actions so that hopefully they learn
That's
and
loving.
get better is
that
extremely
is
loving.
We've talked about that all the time. Loving doesn't mean kind. Loving doesn't mean like
nice.
Nice. Sorry.
Nice.
There's a lot of different ways to love somebody.
I take things away from my girls often.
Out of love.
Out of love.
I punish my child out of love.
They don't perceive it as loving, but it's all right.
But it is. I want to set them up for success in life because I love them. Yep.
So my last thing to whoever's asking this question, you need to first analyze, am I in a harmful, toxic relationship or in just a difficult relationship?
Yeah.
You have to discern that first.
Toxic's a little bit of a buzzword right now.
What that could mean, you know? Yeah. So, but I would say that's the first thing you got to do, you know, is say, hey, is this a relationship that is harmful?
My boss told me to work on Saturday. It's toxic.
Okay. Yeah. They don't say nice things to me, you know, or he never says please. So, well, you need God's unconditional love for that. So.
So spend time with God is the answer to loving somebody unconditionally.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then
if you're being abused,
wisdom.
Get out.
Yep. Wisdom with your situation. Any toxic
not
relationship.
necessarily get out, but boundaries.
Yeah.
Of holding people accountable for their actions.
If you're being physically
if physically abused,
well, that's again that level of toxicity. There's
toxicity.
There's a difference between, you know, low-key arguments and, you know, getting beaten by your spouse.
Yeah.
There's a big difference. So
big.
I think it's, wisdom.
And then no matter what, forgive them. That's called a callback.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, we talked about this last week. The F word, forgiveness.
You got to understand what forgiveness is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, boy. Okay. Well, I hope we helped with that question. I hope it clears the air somewhat, or for anybody who may have had the same question, I hope that helps. But send us a question for next week. We would love to, Kevin would love to talk about anything.
Anything.
You literally, I think if somebody...
98% of topics I will, but
not
everything.
I would love to see...
talk about anything, seriously.
I would love to see somebody type just a word.
Listen.
Challenge
accepted. That is a direct challenge. Okay? Anything.
Stump the panel. Huh?
If you how about
just
this?
Ask the most embarrassing question possible.
If you're hovering over the keyboard right now and you're like, oh man, their channel is called Access Church. I don't know, it's a church. Maybe I shouldn't ask this question.
Anything.
No, just wipe that out of your brain. Ask literally anything you want to, okay?
I might go type a comment. And I'm
going to create a fake account.
I'm going to... trolls are us.
Something you want to know.
Do you think if you're just not feeling it, should you
want.
wait for a heart change or should you fake it till you make it?
We could talk about that for an hour. If you want us to get
I always say that because I know them too very personally. So
it'd be fun.
Anyway, ask any question you want. We will be back next week, hopefully, with some interesting things or words, singular word.
Word.
to talk about. Have a great week. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. See you next week.